Now, at the start of the 1981 Major League Baseball season, we knew a lot of things were going to happen. Several teams came off a very rough financial season in 1980 where a lot of the league players were going to be testing the free agency market. There was a lot of union situation with the players that eventually almost destroyed the season. And we're trying to figure out who of the 1970s dynasties, including the Yankees, Royals, Dodgers, and other squads, including Houston, were going to be the big contenders for 81. And as the season went on, we found out that of all squads, Dodger Blue, the LA Dodgers, who had choked in the World Series and other, postseason situations in the past, including in the case of the Dodgers, 74, 77, and 78, where they made it to the World Series and had a good chance to win but couldn't finish the deal. The 81 Dodgers, against all hopes and again with big odds against them, eventually became World Series champions. Now, the team owned by the great Peter O'Malley, with the GM, the later disgraced, but at the time a great baseball mind, Al Campanis as GM, and with the different cat we call Tommy Lasorda as manager, the team entered the season probably with the most consistent roster they ever had. Now, the Dodgers had to make some big decisions after the 81 season because of free agency. It didn't look like they were able to keep in their all-star infield of Garvey at first, Lopes at second, Russell at shortstop, and Say at third, and eventually what was some many considered the greatest infield in the 1970s was eventually dismantled because of financial pressures. Now, the Dodgers started off very strongly on the season, and because of one major deal. Now, when Fernando Valenzuela started with the Dodgers in 1980, he was doing pretty well short relief, had a very successful kind of undefeated drink of water in the majors. But here in his rookie season, he really impressed. He won his first seven starts, and he pitched not only a shutout on opening day, but he created a big sensational Latino community in LA and of course across America and the world with something called FernandoMania. Now, Fernando was a Mexican phenom who had come to pitching a kind of a combination of Don Sutton, Louis Tiant, and Sandy Koufax. Great movement on his ball. He would look to the skies before his pitch. He had that awkward pitching style, but he knew where the plate was, and Lasorda used him in key situations against the key divisional opponents in the first half. Now, he won Rookie of the Year and Cy Young Award for that season. But the big problem, of course, with that looming strike, which eventually came about, the season was divided into two halves because of a player strike in mid-season. He only came back well after the All-Star break in midsummer. Now, the Dodgers won the Western Division in the first half of the season, advancing to the playoffs, and he played Houston in the divisional series. We'll get more into that in a few moments. But like I said, the team's opening day roster was tremendous. Now, they had a lot of veterans in their lineup and some up-and-coming players. On opening day, again, like I said, he had David Lopes at second, the great underrated player Ken Landreau at center. Dusty Baker was the left fielder with Garvey hitting, of course, cleanup. Ron Say was at third. Pedro Guerrero, who was turning out to be a diamond in the rough, served Teoscar Hernandez of the Dodgers at the time. He was the right fielder. Mike Scioscia was catcher. Mike Scioscia was a very strong workman, like catcher, the successor to Steve Yeager. And of course, Bill Russell at shortstop, that defensive whiz. Fernando was the starting pitcher. But he, like I said, he was the catalyst. Now, the Dodgers entered the season not having the best record in the league, the division, with a 63-47. Actually, of all things, the Reds had a better record overall than Houston and the Dodgers, but because of the format, couldn't make it to the season. But a lot of people felt that the Houston LA series was kind of reflective of the best two overall teams in the West, because Houston had Nolan Ryan and all the other top young prospects. And you look at, like I said, you look at the Dodgers, a very stacked lineup. They had, of all things, four catchers. 9 outfielders, and some really tremendous infielders through the years, including, of all people, a young Mike Marshall, who eventually became Rookie of the Year, and of course Steve Sachs, who were going to be replacing Yager and Lopes and the other players. Now, from the starting pitching, of course, Fernando went 13-7. Bert Hooton, a very strong pitcher, 11-6. The rookie Bob Welch, not the rookie, but a young player Bob Welch, went 95. Jerry Royce was 10-4. Remember, this is a season that when Don Sutton was allowed to leave in free agency, actually went over to Houston, and the bullpen was very strong as well. Had a young Dave Stewart, who was a big World Series hero for Oakland and Toronto later on. You had a young Steve Howe. Rick Sutcliffe was also pitching at the time as a relief starter, same as Dave Goltz. Now, of all players on the team, it really came into fore in the NLDS that their bench strength would go. He played Houston in a 5-game series to decide who was going to the NLCS, and the Dodgers lost 2 really tough games on the road in the Astrodome. They only had 11 hits in the first 2 games, losing 3-1 in the opener and 1-0 in the 11th. And they were up against it, but when he came back to Dodger Stadium, the Dodgers got their hitting prowess back, winning 6-1 in Game 3, 2-1 in Game 4, and the topper, of course, was Jerry Rice's outpitching Nolan Ryan in the final, even though Ryan only allowed 7 hits in a contest. What really killed him was giving up 6 runs in the pivotal 6th inning, and the Dodgers basically coasted a victory from there. Now, with the Dodgers advancing with the Expos, the Montreal Expos, in the Eastern Division playoffs, it was kind of a dream matchup because Tommy Lasorda was a product of the Montreal Royal system. A lot of people believe the Expos were kind of like the successor to the Dodgers of developing young talent, and this was a classic series from the outset. LA started the series with a 5-1 win at home on October 13th, but Montreal rebounded when, of all people, Ray Burris, who was kind of a no-name pitcher, a 10-win season guy, pitched a gem, only a 5-hitter, and winning the second game gave Montreal the opportunity to win at home. And in Game 3, Montreal, Steve Rogers pitched a great game. He won 4-1 and were winning, have 2 opportunities to take the title. But in Game 4, Bert Hooton continued his great pitching prowess, and they coasted to a 7-1 victory, where a lot of people thought Bill Gullickson from Montreal, not having the playoff experience, kind of hurt her chances in that series, and it played here. Now, Game 5 was the crusher for Montreal, where the Dodgers started the Fernando Valenzuela, who actually went the distance for the Dodgers in a 3-hitter. And it came down to a pivotal 9th inning. The Dodgers and Montreal were tied after 8 innings. And Lasorda basically made a decision to keep Rick Monday in the game. Steve Rogers was brought in as relief. And of course, he gave up that pivotal Monday home run to Rick Monday, which is probably ranks as the top Dodger moment before Bob Gibson hit a similar home run for the A's in the '89 World Series. Now we find a rematch actually in the World Series, where the Dodgers were taking on the Yankees in a kind of a return series from the '77 and '78 World Series, where Reggie Jackson kind of was the straw that stirred the drink and gave the Yankees a momentum to beat the Dodgers. But of course, in the '81 World Series, a little bit of changes were going on. The Yankees were a team in transition. A lot of their free agent signees weren't really working. Dave Winfield had a terrible series. He only had 1 hit in 6 games. Now, the opener, the Yankees dominated 5-3 and actually won Game 2 3-0. But you can see the way the games were going, even though the Dodgers had lost the first 2 games of the season. For the first 2 games of the series, the momentum seemed to be with the Dodgers because many people believed that the Yankees were a beatable team, even though, again, they had a good lineup. The Dodgers seemed to have the team that could put it for the long term. But the key game for me was Game 3, and I'll tell you why. With the Yankees leading 4-3 going into the fifth inning, it seems like all the momentum was on the Yankee side. But like as baseball goes, Bob Gibson can tell you about the '68 series where he was pitching a one-hitter and he blew it in the late innings and gave the Tigers the World Series. In this case, the bane of the Yankees, somebody by the name of a reliever by the name of George Frazier, the workmanlike aspect of Fernando in that Game 3. The Dodgers scored 2 runs in the fifth, and Fernando held the fort for the rest of the game. And a key home run by Ron Say was the difference. Now in Game 4, again another squeaker. New York was leading actually 4-0 early before the Dodgers scored 2 in the third and 1 more in the fifth. And the Yankees did take another lead, a bigger lead, 6-3 into the sixth. But the Dodgers tied it. Then he scored 2 in the seventh to go ahead. And another terrible performance by the reliever George Frazier allowed Steve Howe to win in relief. Dodgers won 8-7, and the pinch hitter Jay Johnstone had probably one of the biggest home runs of his career, and that played a big factor in that victory. So here we are. The series is tied 2-2, and in Game 5, this was the biggest heartbreaker for New York. Again, an early lead, and they pretty well hit the choke. Even with Ron Guidry pitching, you would think that would give them an opportunity to win and wrap up at home. But 2 big homers by Guerrero and Yeager. Jerry Royce pitched a great game. Contest was a pitching duel from the start, and the Dodgers eventually overcame 2-1. Now, Game 6 is probably one of the most controversial contests in Yankees history because there was a decision by the management of the Yankees to kind of use Tommy John in the wrong way. In the thoughts of many Yankee fans, he was taken out too early in the contest. When Tommy John was taken out, he was relieved by George Frazier, and this is where the terrible started. The Yankees had led 1-0 early, but had tied it at the top of the fourth. And when John was taken out, the pitching was terrible. The whole series for the Yankees fell apart. They gave up 3 runs in the fifth and four in the sixth, and 1 more insurance run in the ninth for a 9-2 victory. Now, even though Willie Randolph had a big game for the Yankees, hitting a home run, it was Pedro Guerrero with another key game for the winners, and Bert Hooton got the championship win. So the whole series, Dodgers were basically very machine-like in using their bench and using their veterans to make it work. You can basically say that Tommy Lasorda outcoached the Yankees in this series. The Yankees had enough to beat the Dodgers, but didn't have that killer instinct. And sometimes you got to understand that just like the Dallas Cowboys losing a lot of times through the years, a team that loses all the time can sometimes find a way to win. And it's kind of ironic that the Dodgers would win a World Series where no one at the start of the season predicted they were going to do it. Now, there was much accolades for the Dodgers that year. Major League All-Star team, of course. Dodgers had 6 players: Valenzuela, Lopes, Baker, Garvey, Guerrero, and Bert Hooton. Fernando was named Rookie of the Year and Cy Young winner. Bert Hooton got the NLCS MVP, had a great series. Say, Guerrero, and Yeager were co-MVPs for the World Series. Baker won a Golden Glove. Garvey won the Clemente Award for dedication to the sport. Baseball Digest Rookie All-Star team included Dave Stewart and Fernando. TSN Rookie Pitcher of the Year was Fernando. The Sporting News Pitcher of the Year was Fernando. Silver Slugger went to, actually, of all people, Fernando, who was great at the bat, and Dusty Baker. Major League Player of the Year, again, was Fernando. National League All-Star team included Fernando and Pedro. Pitcher of the Year was, National League, was Fernando. And Player of the Week, 3 of them were recognized, including Fernando, April 5th to 12th, Ron Say, May 11 to 17, and Fernando, 31st and September 6th. Now, It all came to the victory here for the Dodgers because of the farm system. They would always be known to have great players coming up. And you have to understand the core of the 74 team that lost to the A's gave them success in 77 and 78, which led to the championship in 81. But I think the 81 team obviously had better pitching. It's kind of ironic that he lost a great pitcher in Don Sutton, who went to the Astros, but picked up a better money pitcher with Fernando. See, Fernando would always look at a game he could pitch 130, 140 pitches, and he would overachieve, and I think that's what put the Dodgers, over the top. So on this rainy Thursday in New Brunswick, where we're getting ready for Canada Day, if you have a chance, go on YouTube. There's a lot of breakdowns of the Yankees Dodger series in '81, especially the critical Game 6, where I'm not mistaken, the announcers that were doing the game were highly critical not only of Dave Winfield, but of the Yankees, managers' decisions, some of the bad play. George Frazier had no right to be on any major league team that year. A terrible pitcher, which his record was actually tied for losses at the World Series 3 by Calvin Schiraldi, who was a bad luck pitcher for Boston, that '86 series, but I'll talk more about that in future podcasts. Again, for Dodger fans, '81 was more than a gift. '81 was a combination of years and years and years and years and years and years of dedication to drafting, dedication to the farm system, a good program, 3 million fans a year. Dodgers at the time, it's hard to believe, ladies and gentlemen, they were second most popular team in Canada. They were more popular than the Blue Jays. The Expos were number one, the Dodgers number two, for obvious reasons, because the Dodgers farm team was in Montreal, the Royals, for years. And Dodger Blue, in my region of Northern New Brunswick, Dalhousie Dodgers, one of the most successful teams ever in the Rescue Baseball League. There's a reason why when you put on the blue, it was quality. And personally, I don't like Tommy Lasorda because, bad mouth and making fun of Yuppie, that famous game where they had Yuppie thrown out in Olympic Stadium. But you can't deny success. The Dodgers deserve a World Series championship, the management, the supporters and all that. And but the Yankees of '81, you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, after when they lost in '81, the Yankees were in the World Series contention every year. The window of wilderness for more than a decade after that, but that's a story for another podcast. Losing the Dodgers almost killed the momentum of the franchise, even with Don Mattingly and everybody else. So on this rainy day, we wish you best of luck. And if you're in the batting cage on the weekend, just remember, got to swing for the fences. Have a good day. Bye.